You know what I've been thinking about a lot in the current climate? It's all the evidence out there that suggests that our ancient ancestors had a habit of caring for the most vulnerable among them, including their disabled members. Yeah. And this is something that goes all the way back to the Neanderthals. You know, if we really look at the first time that we really kind of got a look at this was in this Shanidar cave, and it's now called Shanidar 1. But they found an individual in this cave, a Neanderthal man, 45,000 years ago, right? One male had a disabled arm, deafness, and head trauma that likely rendered him partially blind, yet he had lived a long time, so he must have been cared for. And that's not the only case, right? Because they have a burial here in Vietnam, Burial 9, and it was an individual they found, this is absolutely fascinating, from a group of Stone Age hunters who lived 4,000 years ago. Now, when they found this individual, they found that he had a rare syndrome, a painful genetic disease, which fused the spinal bones, right, and caused him to live basically in a constant state of pain. He would have been basically fully disabled by the time he was in his teens, and he lived to be in his mid-20s. He was at least a partial quadriplegic for the last 10 years of his life, says Tilly, who is the archaeologist, also former nurse and healthcare policy researcher who assisted on this excavation. Now, according to this archaeologist who has this incredible background specialist, she said, paralyzed from the waist down and with severely limited arm and neck movement, he depended on others to provide food, water, clean him, and move him to prevent pressure sores. From the bones alone, we can say this person lived with a disease that required help from others to survive. And it's led to this whole fascinating new kind of branch of archaeology that's kind of extending this bioarchaeology of care, which encourages archaeologists to look at remains with these, like extreme outlying diagnoses, not as curiosities to be like, oh, gasp, look at this thing, but to consider the context around that, right? Which is like, look at how long these people survived. That means they were being cared for. There's human behavior here that we need to pay attention to. Empathy. And they find this with children, with old people, like across the board. In Brazil, they uncovered an infant born 6,000 years ago, again, with a severe, severe disease that would have ravaged its bones. It would have been very, very clear that there was something wrong with this child. It was obviously nurtured for months until this child passed, and then they buried it surrounded by bone collars, bone earrings, dog's head, like rich grave goods, okay? Like this baby was loved, cared for, perhaps respected or revered in some way. We don't really know that, but it shows some type of care or consideration for someone who, in today's society. So it's really, really fascinating. There are tons of studies out there, tons of articles. This one is from NPR. Again, excellent. It talks about so many different cases, which could suggest that humans are a lot more empathetic than we seem to be now. So I highly encourage you, look into this, look into Shanidar Cave, go and look these things up, research your ancient ancestors. You might be surprised.